Hey guys, Ashley here. So we are going to talk about a fun topic today, how we can use energy work to break through patterns to help us get unstuck. So I am all about that Scorpio season today. I'm feeling like I want to wear darker clothes. I want to embody the darker lipstick. Let's talk about shadow work in relationship to energy work from a really fun lens of differentiating between how we approach things in the physical world versus how we approach things in the energetic world, because there is a huge, massive difference. And I do believe understanding this like awareness piece around the energy world versus the physical world will really shed a ton of light for you on how you can get unstuck. So let's dive in. Hey guys, it is Ashley from theawakenedstate.net. And today we're going to talk about energy work, like energy work as a whole concept. Like, this is one of my favorite things to teach on. I have a lot of courses on energy work. I talk a lot about mind body healing work. If you don't know me, I love to teach on mind body healing and kundalini and manifestation and energy work and all the things. And most importantly, I love to bridge that gap between the physical self and the material, like, and the energetic self. And this is something, like, if you don't know, I've been starting to write the Kundalini book, and I'm really excited. Oh my God. And for those that don't know, the Kundalini book has been in the making since before the website was even made. The idea for the website came because of the Kundalini book. And because of the Kundalini book, there was a lot of resistance and trial and error and teachings and learnings. And I am finally ready to write the Kundalini book. But to get back on track, I'm starting on like chapter 3 at this point. And one thing that's been hugely coming up between writing Kundalini and really getting into like the mission at the awakened state is always been about how can we bridge this gap between the spiritual self and the physical self. Like, how can we bridge the gap between that energetic self, that spiritual self of who we are, our highest self energy, and bridge the gap between our physical self? And so if you've been following along on my journey, like I said in the podcast, like, we have to realize there's this point of realization when it comes to spiritual awakening where we start to realize that, oh, I'm the person that is creating this gap. And it's my job to essentially dissolve the gap so the spiritual energetic self starts working with the material and the physical self. And when it comes to energy work, this is a huge piece of that, because you can start to see, like, there's a huge difference between how we operate in the physical world and how we grew up perceiving the world versus this beautiful understanding of the energetic world. And I think this is like that missing piece, the elephant in the room, that isn't really talked about, like, at all. And I mean, it's talked about, but it's not talked about in so much depth that we're like, oh, that's what that means. Because when you think about it like this, like, a lot of us are more familiar with material. We're more familiar with physical objects, with what we see with our senses, what we feel, what we see, what we taste. Like, we're more in alignment with the physical world versus the energetic world. And then we have a spiritual awakening and we're suddenly thrown in this whole other universe. And it's almost like, we've entered the interdimensional portal of where now we understand that there's energy going on behind the scenes. There's vibration going on behind the scenes. There's dimensions of consciousness going on behind the scenes. And it's like this mystical, magical, aloof, almost otherworldly moment where we're just like, shit, So there's more than just physical life. There's more than just physical reality. There's more than just this moment of seeing, like, this is a table and this is a chair and this is a coffee cup. Like, there's so much more beyond the scenes. And, whether, you've had DMT experiences or, done pot or whatever, it doesn't matter, because you start to see that it's like, oh my God, when I'm in these altered states of consciousness, what I'm actually seeing is that energetic world. And it's like, it's so close. It lives beyond, like, just looking behind your glasses. Like, if you wear glasses and you have blurry vision, what you're seeing is energy. What you're seeing is the energetic world. And so one thing that I do wear glasses, by the way. So, so one thing that really blew my mind is going back to this core mission statement of really, like, the awakened state has always been about bridging this gap between our spiritual self and our physical self. And when we look at Kundalini, the same thing is going on. So when you think about how Kundalini awakening is all about ascension and the rising of energy, it's also about descension, the descending of energy back into the physical plane. So it's like a lot of us only try to ground from, the root to the crown. And actually, we're receiving those downloads from the crown and the crown chakra, and that's literally anchoring and embodying in the root chakra. So stay with me here. So when you think about how we have the spiritual realm versus the physical realm, like, when we aren't using, like, energy work and we're not tuned into these different planes of consciousness, we are in this illusion of perception of separation. And that illusion of separation will have us have these mentalities where we don't feel enough, where we feel separate from our desires, where we feel disconnected from who we are, where we feel disconnected from our soul, from our higher self, from our higher truth. And higher truth is nothing more than higher perceptions of consciousness, aka dimensions. So when you think about how, when we go into these mentalities of trying to achieve something, but we feel stuck, or when we're going into these mentalities of, like, trying to reach a goal, and yet we're getting hit by, like, all of this resistance and all of this mindset and all of these barriers in our consciousness, we have to also go back to, but wait a minute. I grew up believing that physical effort is how I get a result. I grew up believing that it's actually really hard to do things. I grew up believing that it's supposed to be a struggle. It's supposed to be hard work. It's supposed to be this mentality of push, 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 hustle, 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 strive, strive, strive. Because we're coming at it from this lens, and this is, like, so cool. So when you think about, like, how manifestation works through magnetism in the law of attraction, right? And, like, when we have those skeptics out there, it's because they're leaning into that mentality of they need to push their manifestation. They need to force the energy forward. So it's like, this is, like, so fucking cool. When you think about manifestation, a lot of people can perceive it as this hustle mentality where they need to force, push, and strive for their manifestation to come into form. And, like, energy work works so much differently because it's about magnetism, and we're literally, like, being magnetic towards our desires. And when we look at this in terms of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum is all about magnetism, whereas Newtonian physics is about cause and effect. And so when we're in a cause and effect relationship, which is how we grew up, and, a lot of us grew up with this mentality of, like, we can only get things through physical effort alone. But now once we awaken, we're under the awareness that actually there's this whole other world that we can tap into. The realization that we are not just a physical being in a physical body. We are energetic, spiritual, emotional, mental, and all of this encompassing energy is also who we are. But a lot of us are not using that part of ourselves. So it's almost like we're using 5% of our potential when we could be using a full fucking 100. And it's like, when you come at it from this lens of, wow, so energy exists, we're all vibrating and we attract what we are. And at the same time, you're breaking free from all of those contracting, contradicting, cognitive dissonance ideas that are saying, but it happens through physical effort alone. It happens through pushing the manifestation. It happens through manipulating matter. It happens through forcing things. It happens through striving things. It happens through making sure I exert enough energy momentum forward to push that into physical life. But that's why we actually get stuck. And I think this is like, whoa, because you can see it that way too, because when you come at it from a quantum lens, you're working from an entirely different framework of magnetism. The energetic world is magnetic, and it's literally proven that it's magnetic. And there's concepts like the observer effect, and there's concepts like the double slit experiment, and like these like different experiments that we've learned that like things are magnetic. But these man-made concepts that are almost outdated, old paradigm systems of cause and effect have been running our lives for so long that now that we're trying on these new ideas, we might be hitting up on like some incongruencies where we're kind of like, but no, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to exert a ton of effort. I'm supposed to exert a lot of energy. I'm supposed to push all this action forward. And yes, that is true to an extent, but is it coming from the right place? Because what I've found is with energy work, we're not just working from the physical alone. And this is where people get stuck. Okay, so here's the thing, to get to my point, is to really understand that the energetics work differently than what we've been perceiving from the physical world. And I think this is where the mindfuck happens, because we're so conditioned to operate in a certain way that once we understand that we can do energy work, once we understand that we're learning vibrations, once we understand that law of attraction, law of oneness, law of vibration, law of correspondence, all of these universal laws exist, when we start to really tap into that, I think it's almost like literally training yourself to ride a bike again, because you weren't familiar with those concepts. So it's like a practice. It's a new way of living. It's a new way of embodying. It's a new way of understanding the world. And so one thing I love about the chakras is it's kind of like this roadmap of how you can understand like your energetic anatomy, and how you can understand that part of you that is vibrationally creating a blueprint for your life. Whereas before we were only understanding that I could do things in this physical way. So it's like a lot of people, when they feel stuck, when they feel uncertain, when they feel doubtful, when they feel a lot of negative emotion and resistance, most of the time what we'll try to do is we'll try to take a bunch of action. We'll try to force ourselves into action, or we'll go into the complete opposite way and we'll be like in frozen mode, or like, I am so overwhelmed by everything, I refuse to take action. I'm going to sit on my couch and cuddle with blankets and forget about the world. That's usually what we do. And what occurs when we're in that stuck place, that feeling where we feel lost or uncertain, or we're just kind of in the motions, is like we have to realize that just changing physical things, just moving around matter and trying to change things won't always get us what we want, because we're literally manipulating the past. We're trying to change ourselves by first changing our physical environment or our physical like actions or physical life without changing anything on the inside first. What will inevitably happen is we'll just recreate a pattern, because all we're doing is trying to change circumstance that's already built. So this really interesting concept is Circumstance is already created. Well, how do you create a circumstance? A circumstance is literally created by your state of being, your energetic state of being. So a circumstance cannot create another circumstance. A circumstance just is, and you either accept it for what it is or you resist it for what it is. And until you're willing to accept it for what it is, you cannot enter the state of being where you know that you can change the circumstance. And so it's like a lot of the world operates this way. They operate from circumstance just is, and I'm going to resist what it is. So therefore, because the circumstance exists, all I'm going to do is exert a shit ton of effort. I'm going to do a fuck ton of action forward. It doesn't matter if it's forceful, pushy. I'm going to push my manifestation. I'm going to push that outcome forward. And inevitably what occurs is the opposite, because you're literally just pushing away from the resistance. You're not actually creating a new trajectory at all. You're not creating a new pattern. You're not changing anything. It's like a person who's excessively wants to lose weight, and they decide to start, and then they exercise 7 days a week for 3 weeks. And by the 4th week, they're exhausted and they're overwhelmed and they're freaking out and their nervous system is taxed. So what happens? They immediately sabotage, eat a shit ton of garbage, and then immediately stop what they're doing, and then the pattern reverts. Why does it revert? Well, it reverts because you didn't have a sustainable foundation internally. So it's like a lot of us think and assume that external change, it's almost like programmed into us, where we feel that we have to do a bunch of physical things first. And I'm not saying that doing like physical actions is wrong or anything. I am not from that mentality. But what I am saying, when we only attack change from the physical first, and we try to exert change on the physical first, but we're highly neglecting all of this vibrational, energetic conversation that's literally creating the entire circumstance itself, and we're like literally stabbing ourselves in the foot, like completely. Because how could we actually change if our entire vessel is saying one thing, we're exerting a bunch of effort to say another thing? There's a huge gap and incongruency occurring because the energetic conversation is saying something completely different. This is the power behind energy work, because energy work allows us to systematically break a pattern due to at the vibrational level that it was created. So when you think about becoming unstuck or establishing a new habit or establishing an exercise routine or any of these things, it has to be created at the energetic level. Because if you're only attacking change from the physical level, you're literally like, I'm changing past circumstance with my past thoughts, my past feelings, my past vibrations, my past habits, and my past behaviors, and my past emotional triggers. And all of that just literally loops and recreates the same pattern. Once I understood this, it like really blew my mind, because it shows us that this isn't just like woo-woo bullshit. This is literally like neuroscience, psychology. It's quantum physics. Like, this isn't just one thing that I'm saying at random. Like, when you start to understand that the chakra anatomy is kind of influencing the entire script, like, one thing we can do is we realize that energy is the easiest way to break a pattern. But the other thing we realize that is the energetic realm, and this is like the cool part, it operates entirely differently. Like, it operates entirely differently than the physical world, because the energetic world is magnetic. It's non-linear. It operates in the place of pure consciousness. It operates in quantum intelligence. It operates from the place of no self, no time, no space, only pure consciousness, because consciousness is who you are at your core. So when you think about in terms of understanding the energetic realm, when we start to work on changing vibrationally, we're not just changing ourselves from the physical is now the byproduct of changing the energetic, because the energetic happens faster, easier, and it's more magnetic. Whereas when we change on the physical level, we're exerting a shit ton of effort. We're using up our energy reserves, basically, because we're pushing the manifestation physically. And this is like fucking next level shit, man. So when you think about that, it's like, before I was doing it from a lens of exerting a ton of effort. I'm in a space where I'm pushing things forward. Now, what happens energetically is different. So it's like the physical world is like hard work, and the energetic, it's like you're relearning how to make it easier for yourself through alignment. And so alignment is simple. Alignment is easy. So when we're working from the energetic, it's magnetism. So the magnetism is not push the magnetism. The magnetism is drawn in. It's literally drawn into your field of consciousness. It's like you are a magnet with your thoughts and focus and energy, and that becomes drawn into your field of consciousness. And because of that, and I know this is sounding really out there, but if you think about this, this is literally proven quantumly and scientifically. It's through the observer effect. We're literally changing our focus, our energy vibrations. When we enter that space of working on the energetics, we're operating from a place where we're literally pulled towards our results. Whoa, gee, doesn't that sound familiar? Wait, what is that? Oh, that's the law of attraction. Yeah, that makes sense, because if that's the law of attraction, I'm literally pulling in my results. But before, I was doing it from the old paradigm way of physical effort. So you can start to see that energy work isn't like, it's not like this mystical concept. It is literally like you're working with your quantum magnetism consciously. And you're learning how to change your vibration consciously. Like, that just blows my mind, because the whole concept of energy work is literally you working with vibrations due to your chakras, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your habits, your behaviors. When you start to change the internal state, the internal environment, the outer world is a byproduct that will have to shift, because the vibrational state is changing, which means that your magnetism will automatically shift and change. So when we think about this in terms of the chakras, like, let me just give you an example, because this is like really, really powerful. Like, for example, so a really easy way to do this is with like the solar plexus. So when you think about the solar plexus, like, a lot of it's about our identity, our sense of ego. So when we change the energy of the solar plexus, the way we take action might change. We might allow ourselves to rest more. We might allow ourselves to be like, I've done enough today. It's okay to just relax and breathe, and I'll trust that my intuition will guide me to the aligned action I need to take. So it's like this conversation is not about force myself to take action. It's about I'm soul-led and guided from within on the actions I am led to take. And I will be shown what action to take. And there's a huge difference here between I need to write a to-do list and write what I need to do versus understanding that when you heal the solar plexus, like, you're operating from a space of taking action from intuition versus fear. A lot of the times we take forced action is due to fear versus our intuition. So it's like when we clean up what's going on in the solar plexus, we can start to see that, like, the solar plexus is often dominated around, you know, feeling like a victim versus a creator, and feeling like feel powerless over our circumstance versus powerful over our circumstance. And so that a moment of empowerment pushes us into taking action from intuition versus fear-led action. And that's a huge difference because you're going to attract differently if you're taking action from your intuition versus forcing yourself to take action from a state of fear and pressure and franticness and pushing, because that's an energy of lack. So if you're taking action from a space of lack and you're pushing and forcing and like kind of like in that like I have to do things, I got to get it done, that energy is coming from a space of neediness and lack, which vibrationally will attract more lack. When you're in a space where I'm going to be pulled into the action, I'm going to tune into my intuition, I'm going to be present in my body, and then I'm allowing myself to be pulled and led from within, now I'm taking action from a space of inspired, aligned action, which I like to call magnetic action, because that's what's going on. So you can start to see that this is the beauty of energy work. We're operating from different frameworks of reality. And I don't think this is not talked about enough. Like how we are literally operating from a different state of consciousness, a different place where we're empowering those chakras. So our magnetism, we become more magnetic towards our natural alignment of what we want and desire and crave for our life, because we're operating from a different framework versus that fear-led hustle. And when we start to approach that energy work from a lens of really looking at that magnetic nature of who we are, we can start to see that we will literally attract differently in our lives due to that particular vibration, because we change the internal state. And that's all because of energy work. All right, so the main takeaway I want to say here is you have to differentiate, bring into that awareness of like looking at how energy work is literally different than the old paradigm way of doing things. And that doesn't mean that action does not happen. It means that action is coming from a different place entirely. And I think that's the hugest differentiation between looking at, well, how do you see yourself getting results in the old paradigm versus the new paradigm? Because the old paradigm says exert physical effort, do cause and effect until you do feel enough and feel good enough and feel worthy and feel abundant and feel whatever. Whereas the new paradigm is saying, I am magnetically pulled and led to my desires. That's a whole different conversation. So I would absolutely love to know your thoughts about this discussion. And if you have any questions about energy work, just know that the Ultimate Chakra Academy is open for one more day. And if you are deeply interested in learning to work together on the chakras, on energy work, understanding your own vibrational blueprint, please check out that link below. And I'll see you guys next time.